Circles. A circle is a set of points that are equidistant from a fixed point, HK, which we call the center. The distance from the center to any point on the edge of the circle is called the radius, R. Okay, now the standard form equation of a circle is pretty simple. So all it is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. And that equals your radius, r squared. Alright, now we want to keep in mind that h comma k is your center and r is the radius. So if we know this equation, then we should be able to graph and understand what a circle will look like. Okay, in this first example, we know a point on the outside of the circle and the center point. So if we find the distance from that center to that point on the circle, then we have our radius. So to find our radius, we're going to use our distance formula, which you should recall as x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. That's our distance formula. So that's how we're going to find our radius. So my radius is going to equal the square root of -1 minus -2 squared plus 1 minus 5 squared. Alright, so now when I solve this, I would have the square root 1 minus a -2, so that would be 1 squared, plus 1 minus 5 is -4 squared, so that would be the square root of 1 plus 16. So r is equal to the square root of 17. So if I want to put it into my standard form equation, recall that the standard form is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals my radius squared. So I want my radius squared, so I'm going to square both sides here, and my radius squared would then be 17. So I know it should be set equal to 17. And then with the x, the h, and the k, or the h and the k's, what we need to do is look at our center point. So x minus h would be minus -1, put in my h, and then my k would be y minus 1. So my final answer would be x plus 1 quantity squared plus y minus 1 quantity squared equals 17. Final answer. In this next example, again, we want to find standard form equation of the circle, but this time it's given to us in a expanded form. So what we need to do is start by grouping our x's and y's and get everything else on the other side of the equal sign. So if I group my x's, I have x squared minus 6x plus y squared plus 6y. And then get everything else on the other side, so I'm just subtracting the 14 over. I have minus 14. Alright, so now I left a space there because I know I'm going to have to complete the square. But first I need to factor out and make sure there's a 1 before my squared coefficients, which I already have. So I can go on and complete my square. So plus a -6 over 2 quantity squared, and then plus a positive 6 over 2 quantity squared. Alright, and if I do it to one side, I got to do it to the other side, so I'm going to add -6 over 2 squared, and I'm going to add positive 6 over 2 squared to both sides. And then I have my completed square. So I'm going to take my x and drop it in. I'm going to take my whatever's inside those parentheses right there, which is a negative 3. 6 over 2 is 3 squared, plus take my y, drop it in, and then 6 over 2 is positive 3 squared equals negative 14 plus 6 over 2. Negative 6 over 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. And then 6 over 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So plus 9 plus 9. And then my final answer, if I were to just simplify that out, I would get x minus 3 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 14. Negative 14 plus 9 is actually going to be 4 then, 18 minus 14. So that is my standard form equation. Now if I asked you to take it one step further and find the radius and then find the center, the radius is just the square root of 4. R squared equals 4, so that means R equals the square root of 4, which is 2. And HK is my center point, so that would be my 3. So a positive 3 and a double negative minus a negative 3 here. So that would make it a negative 3 for the y. So there you go. In this last example, we want to find all of the intercepts. So let's start with the x-intercepts. So that would be where it crosses the x-axis. So when we do that, what we want to do is, it means the y is actually 0 because it's not up or down at all on the graph. So what I'm going to do is put 0, y equals 0, and then just solve. So that's going to give me an x plus 5 squared plus 0 minus 4 squared equals 25. And I'm just putting that straight into that equation. And then I'm going to just solve it out. So I have x plus 5 squared. I'm going to leave it like that because I think it'll be easier to solve. And then negative 4 squared is actually going to be 16 equals 25. Subtract the 16 over, and I would have x plus 5 squared equals 25 minus 16 is 9. So then I take a square root of both sides, and I have x plus 5 equals positive or negative 3. Make sure when you take a square root, you do the positive and the negative. Okay, so now at this point, I add or subtract the 5 over, and I can split it up. So what I have is x equals negative 5 plus 3, or x equals a negative 5 minus 3. So that means my x would equal a negative 2, or my x would equal a negative 8. So those are my two x-intercepts, and we write those as points. So we'd write it as negative 2, comma 0, and negative 8, comma 0. So those are my x-intercepts. Now I have to go to my y-intercepts. Okay, so my y-intercepts, my x is going to be equal to 0. So I'm going to put that in. So I have 0 plus 5 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 25. All right, and then I solve it the same way that I did before. So I have 5 squared, which is 25, plus y minus 4 squared equals 25. Okay, so now I subtract the 25 over, and I actually get 0. So this one's actually going to be kind of nice because there's only going to be one answer. So I have y minus 4 squared equals 0. So I take a square root, When I take a square root of 0 is 0, so it's not going to change anything. I still have y minus 4 equals 0. Add the 4 over, and y equals 4. So that leaves my answer to be 0, 4. So all of my intercepts would be -2, 0, -8, 0, and 0, 4. Those are all of the intercepts. That's your notes on understanding circles. Go through the practice problems. Make sure you can do all types of these problems and solve them and figure out the different aspects of circles. And then you can prepare for your quiz.